This episode of SESSLERS Something is brought to you by Bob's House of Interactive Things. Well, hello everyone. This is our new game lab. As you can see, we are just moving in, putting it together. So it should come to form in the background in the weeks to come. So it should be very exciting. Also, I have some very exciting news. We have named the show. It is now officially SESSLERS Something. Most of you actually wanted us to keep the name that way, and the more we thought about it, it just sounds right. Yeah, it just plain sounds right. So welcome to the first official SESSLERS Something. Now, to kick things off, it looks like that a topic that I have always wished I never have to address has once again reared its ugly head with the absolutely terrible series of events that happened in Newtown, Connecticut with the shooting of 20 school children. These things tend to have a pretty big effect on me. I've been doing this for 14 years, and I have very keen memories of 1999 when the Columbine shootings happened, and I watched the stories in the paper. They would mention doom maybe on page 5 of the New York Times, and the following day it went to page 2, and then it was suddenly on the front page. And just by virtue of the fact that I was standing in front of Videogames, I became the, I received several death threats, and one, I remember eating a burger when I read it online, and it said, if I got raped and murdered in a New York alley, justice would be done. And I have a distinct memory of how the taste of that burger in my mouth changed. As a result, and unfortunately because there have been so many of these incidents since then, I tend to have an instinct that makes me want to kind of crawl into a hole and just see how the whole thing goes. The one thing I would say, contrasting then to now, because a lot of you sort of reached out, be it on social media or something like that over the weekend, really seeing this as a beginning of another attack on video games, and I can say emphatically that's not going to happen. This is nothing like what it was back in 1999. There have been some statements made. Jack Thompson said something. I believe Joe Klein from Time made a comment, as did Joe Lieberman. But these really seem to be in the minority. I think the really horrible nature of what happened in Connecticut is really keeping people from trying to find these seemingly BS causalities. I mean, it is something that you really can't grandstand on, because just the sadness and the tragedy of it is just a little bit too much to bear. That's not to say that, despite the fact that this isn't a video game thing, that this didn't have some sort of strange impact, at least on me. I attempted to play games over the weekend. I wanted to finish up some stuff for Best of the Year, and I found that, you know, those games that I have been playing, where there's guns and there's violence, it just didn't feel good to be doing it. I really kind of noticed that the abstraction that usually is a gun in a first-person shooter seemed a little bit more canny than it has in other times when I'm sitting down to play the game. And I just felt like I needed to get a little bit of distance, and I sat down and played Journey and Unfinished Swan for something that is sort of a different experience. And it really has allowed me to reflect, and I think I've felt this way in years past when, you know, suddenly the real world becomes a little bit, it intrudes a lot on what I do for a living and the role of violence that we do see in a lot of video games out there. And I really start to reflect on it, that, you know, at the end of the day, while there is a large swath of what makes up a game, if you look at what games are very popular, and definitely are very popular with young men, the primary mode of interaction is a violent one. It tends to be killing someone else that's playing online, or just killing kind of, you know, what an avatar would be of the AI of the computer. And the fact is, I enjoy it. I enjoy it quite a bit, you know, and there are times where, yes, there is that fetishization of the violence that's happening on screen, and I completely respond to it, as I imagine many of you out there do. I do not think there's something inherently wrong with that, but I think in the context of what happened on Friday, it does kind of just make me want to step back and just kind of look at the totality of it. There's no one violent game that I have any issue with. There's no one game that I would take exception to. But when you do realize that so much of the language of video games is one of violence, and then you contrast that with other forms of art and culture. Let's look at Shakespeare. He writes Titus Andronicus and Macbeth, which are just buckets of blood being thrown on the stage, but he also was able to do the sonnets and the Tempest. And we aren't at a point yet, I think, in game design where we have that level of contrast. And as a result, I think that's where discomfort from those who don't understand the language of games, and they get anxious when these things happen, and they kind of look to video games, if not as a scapegoat, but as something that's kind of illustrates something symptomatic that's happening in our society and in their minds, youth culture. And I don't have an answer for that. I know that I like this, and I know that a few days from now, I'll probably go back to playing Far Cry 3 and finish up Assassin's Creed 3. But it does make me wonder, why is it so satisfying? Why is it so intriguing? You know, what statement are we making about our current condition that something like that really is the way that we want to interact with one another? Why is that the fantasy interaction we've always wanted to have? I don't have an answer for that, and while I ponder it, I think I'm going to play a little more Journey. I want to encourage you all to join me in my first Google Hangout, where you can address the SES. It'll be kind of a fun, lively discussion. We're going to try to get a lot of you guys on camera, and you can ask me any question that you feel like asking me. It's at 4 p.m. on the West Coast, 7 p.m. on the East Coast, and that's tomorrow, Tuesday, December 18th. Now, if you need to know where to go to see it, well, go to our Google Plus page. It's the link right below. If you do happen to miss it, we're going to post the whole thing up on YouTube so you can enjoy it in the future. So remember, that's tomorrow, December 18th, 4 p.m. West Coast and 7 p.m. East Coast. It should be a lot of fun. Hope to see you there.